It was a Tuesday afternoon. A day like any other, or so I thought. The air in our old house often felt thick with unspoken things. A quiet hum beneath the surface of our perfectly normal family life. My parents, outwardly, were the epitome of stability. Loving, supportive, always there. We had family dinners, summer vacations, the usual milestones. But looking back, there was always a faint, almost imperceptible shadow lurking at the edges of our family portrait. A piece that didn't quite fit. A question that was never asked. I just never knew what it was. I was cleaning out the attic, a task I'd put off for years, mostly out of sheer disinterest, partly out of a subconscious reluctance to disturb the dust of forgotten memories. The attic was a graveyard of our past, filled with boxes of old clothes, broken toys, faded photographs, and the general detritus of a life lived. My mom had asked me to sort through it, to clear some space, a mundane request that would inadvertently shatter the very foundation of my understanding of my family, and indeed myself. The sun, filtering through the grimy attic window, cast long, dusty beams across the floor. I was knee-deep in a box labeled, "Miscellaneous Papers, Dad." A box that usually contained old tax returns and expired warranties. I was about to heave it into the donate pile when something caught my eye. Tucked beneath a stack of yellowed bank statements, wrapped in a brittle, faded ribbon, was a small, unassuming bundle of letters. They looked old, much older than anything else in the box, written on delicate, cream-colored stationery with a faint floral pattern. My heart gave a strange, unexpected lurch. It was a feeling I couldn't quite place, a mix of curiosity and an odd sense of foreboding. These weren't ordinary letters. They were addressed to my mother, in my father's elegant, looping handwriting, a script I knew so well from birthday cards and notes left on the fridge. But the postmarks were from decades ago, long before I was born. My parents rarely wrote letters. They lived together. Why would my dad be writing such formal letters to my mom? And why were they hidden so carefully? A chill snaked its way down my spine. This wasn't just old correspondence. This felt like a secret. My fingers trembled slightly as I untied the ribbon. The paper felt fragile, almost crumbling at my touch. The first letter was dated October 12, 1988. I was born in 1993. This was years before I even existed. The opening lines were formal, yet laced with a palpable sense of anxiety. "My dearest Eleanor," it began. "I hope this letter finds you well, though I doubt either of us can truly be well under these circumstances. I've been thinking of nothing else since our last conversation. The weight of this decision, it's crushing me." My breath hitched. Decision? What decision? My mind raced, trying to conjure any family crisis from that era, but nothing came to mind. My parents had always seemed so content, so stable. I continued reading, my eyes scanning the delicate script, desperate for answers. The letter spoke of the situation, of the difficulties, of a future we never envisioned. It was vague, shrouded in euphemisms, yet the emotional tenor was clear. Something profoundly difficult was happening. My father wrote about his sleepless nights, his worry for my mother, and the sacrifice they were considering. The word sacrifice echoed in my head, a jarring, ominous sound. What could be so significant, so devastating, that it would require such a word? I moved on to the next letter, dated a few weeks later. The tone was more urgent, more desperate. "Eleanor, I know this is hard, but we have to be practical. We've explored every option. Every single one. And with our financial situation, with everything we're trying to build, it just doesn't seem possible. We both know what we have to do, even if it tears us apart." Tears us apart. My parents. The words were a physical blow. I felt a cold dread settle in the pit of my stomach. My parents, tearing themselves apart over a decision so monumental it was veiled in such secrecy. What could it be? My mind spiraled through possibilities. A terrible illness? A business failure? A past affair? None of it felt right. The intensity of the emotion, the sheer weight of the language, suggested something far more personal, far more intimate. The third letter, dated late December 1988, was shorter, handwritten with a slightly shaky hand. It was the first time I saw a hint of a name. The doctor confirmed it today, Eleanor. 6 months. And our little secret is growing stronger every day. 6 months. Little secret. Growing stronger. My hands started to shake uncontrollably. It couldn't be. Could it? A child? Before me? The thought was so outlandish, so completely outside the realm of my reality, that my mind struggled to process it. My parents had always told me I was their first and only child, their miracle baby. This implied, this screamed otherwise. I felt a surge of nausea, a cold wave of betrayal washing over me. My vision blurred. I had to keep reading. There were about 10 more letters in the bundle. Each one peeled back another layer of the truth. A truth that was becoming increasingly horrifying and heartbreaking. The next few letters detailed the progression of the pregnancy. My father wrote about my mother's morning sickness, her growing belly, the fear they felt every day that someone would find out. He spoke of hushed conversations, stolen glances, and the elaborate lengths they went to keep this pregnancy a secret from everyone. Their friends, their families, the world. The desperation in his words was palpable. He talked about how they couldn't afford another child, how their lives were just starting, how they had dreams that would be crushed if this came out. Then came the letter dated June 15, 1989. This one was different. It wasn't a formal letter. It was a desperate, almost frantic note. She's here, Eleanor. A beautiful baby girl. So tiny, so perfect. I held her for a moment. Just a moment. And then they took her. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Seeing you, holding her, then letting her go. I don't know how we'll ever recover from this. She has your eyes, Eleanor. Her name is Sarah. Sarah. My sister. I collapsed onto the dusty attic floor. The letters scattering around me like fallen leaves. The air was sucked out of my lungs. A sister. I had a sister. And my parents had given her away. The revelation hit me with the force of a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air. Tears streaming down my face. My parents, who had always seemed so gentle, so kind, had harbored this immense, life-altering secret for decades. They had a child before me, a daughter named Sarah, and they had given her up for adoption. And they had never, not once, spoken a word of it. The subsequent letters were a raw chronicle of their grief, their guilt, and their attempts to come to terms with their decision. My father wrote about the silence in the house, the empty nursery they had secretly prepared, the phantom cries he swore he heard in the night. He wrote about seeing mothers with their babies, and the pang of anguish that struck him each time. My mother, through his letters, was described as withdrawn, heartbroken, a shadow of her former self. They clung to each other, bound by this unspeakable secret, vowing never to speak of it again, to move forward, to build a new life, a life where this painful chapter never existed. And they did. They succeeded. They built a life. They had me, their second child, their supposed first. And they buried Sarah so deep, so completely, that she ceased to exist in their spoken narrative, living only in these hidden, fading letters. I sat there for what felt like hours, the dust motes dancing in the sunlight, the attic silent except for my ragged breathing. My entire life, every memory, every story, every shared laugh, every comforting hug, suddenly felt tainted, filtered through this new, horrifying lens. Who were my parents, really? Were they the loving, honest people I thought they were? Or were they master manipulators, capable of such a profound deception? And what did this mean for me? For my own identity? I was their child, but I was also the child born into the aftermath of an unimaginable loss, a secret so heavy it had shaped their entire being. The anger began to bubble up, hot and acrid. How could they keep something so monumental from me? Their own child. Didn't I deserve to know? Didn't Sarah deserve to be acknowledged? The injustice of it was staggering. I imagined Sarah somewhere out there, living a life, perhaps wondering about her birth parents, never knowing that she had a sister who had just unearthed her existence in a dusty attic. My mind raced, trying to put the pieces together. Were there subtle clues I had missed? Were there moments of quiet sadness, of distant gazes, that I had dismissed as mere parental worries? I remembered my mother's occasional melancholic silences, her sometimes overprotective nature, her fierce love for me, which now felt less like pure affection and more like an attempt to compensate for a past loss. My father's stoicism, his sometimes impenetrable emotional wall, now made perfect sense. They were living with a ghost, a secret child that haunted their every breath. I carefully gathered the letters, my hands still shaking. I knew I couldn't just put them back. This wasn't something that could be reburied. This was a truth that demanded to be confronted, no matter how painful, no matter how much it shattered the comfortable illusion of my family. I went downstairs, the letters clutched tightly in my hand. My parents were in the living room, reading, just as they always were on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The scene was so utterly normal, so utterly peaceful, that it felt like a cruel mockery of the storm raging inside me. How could they sit there, so calmly, knowing what they knew, having lived with this secret for so long? My voice, when it came, was a whisper, raspy and raw. Mom. Dad. We need to talk. They looked up, surprised by my sudden appearance and the intensity in my voice. My mother's eyes, so like the ones my father described in his letters, widened slightly. My father put down his newspaper, his brow furrowed with concern. What is it, honey? My mom asked, her voice soft, oblivious to the earthquake I was about to unleash. I held up the bundle of letters, untied, their contents now an open wound. I found these. In the attic. In Dad's box. Their faces drained of color. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father's jaw tightened, his eyes darkening with a mixture of fear and resignation. The silence that followed was deafening, heavy with decades of unspoken truths. Sarah, I said, my voice breaking on the name. You had a daughter. Before me. Her name was Sarah. And you gave her away. The dam broke. My mother started to weep, deep, guttural sobs that tore at my heart. My father, usually so composed, looked utterly defeated, his gaze fixed on the floor. Please, my mother choked out. Please understand, honey. It was so long ago. We were so young. So scared. My father finally looked at me, his eyes filled with an anguish I had never seen before. We never wanted to hurt you. We never wanted you to carry this burden. We thought it was better if you never knew. Better if I never knew? Better for whom? The words felt like a fresh sting. Better for you maybe. I retorted, my voice rising. But what about me? What about Sarah? She exists. She's my sister. And you just erased her. The conversation that followed was one of the most agonizing of my life. They told me their story, finally, openly, albeit through tears and immense pain. They were young, just starting out, barely making ends meet. My mother had a difficult, unexpected pregnancy. They felt they had no choice. They believed adoption was the most loving, selfless thing they could do for their baby girl, giving her a chance at a life they couldn't provide. They had made a private adoption arrangement, ensuring Sarah would go to a loving family, but without any contact. The pain of letting her go had been so profound that they had collectively decided to bury the memory, to protect themselves, and eventually, to protect me. They feared I would feel less loved, less special, if I knew I wasn't there first. They feared I would resent them, or worse, feel responsible for their unspoken sorrow. Their explanations, while heartbreaking, didn't immediately soothe the storm inside me. The years of deception, the sheer magnitude of the secret, felt like a gaping wound. How could I reconcile the parents who raised me with these two terrified, heartbroken young people who made such an impossible choice and then built a fortress of silence around it? My mother described the day Sarah was born, the brief moment she held her, the smell of her baby's skin, the immense love and the equally immense pain of letting go. My father spoke of the emptiness, the gnawing guilt that never truly left them. They had visited the adoption agency once, years later, just to confirm Sarah was well, thriving in her new home, but they never made contact. They kept their distance, believing it was best for Sarah to grow up without the complications of knowing her birth parents. I listened, my anger slowly giving way to a profound sadness, a deep empathy for their past selves, but also a lingering sense of loss for the sister I never knew. I saw them not just as my parents, but as two individuals who had endured an unimaginable trauma, and who had carried that trauma silently for decades. It didn't excuse the secrecy, but it shed light on the immense weight they had been carrying. The days and weeks that followed were a blur of intense conversations, raw emotions, and a painful process of rebuilding trust. We talked for hours, sometimes late into the night. They showed me old photos they had kept hidden away. A tiny, blurry Polaroid of my mother, heavily pregnant, her face etched with a mixture of fear and defiance. Another, even more faded, of my father holding a swaddled infant, his eyes red-rimmed, his expression a mask of profound sorrow. These were the only tangible traces of Sarah they had kept, hidden alongside the letters, a silent testament to a life they had chosen to forget, but never truly could. I learned more about my parents in those few weeks than I had in my entire life. I saw their vulnerability, their capacity for both immense love and immense pain, their flaws, and their enduring resilience. It was a shattering experience, but also, strangely, a cathartic one. The air in our house, once thick with unspoken things, began to clear. The shadow that had always lingered at the edges of our family portrait started to dissipate, replaced by the harsh, yet liberating, light of truth. The biggest question, of course, remained, Sarah, my sister. What about her? My parents were hesitant, still fearing the disruption, the pain it might cause her, or us. But I couldn't let it go. How could I? I had a sister out there, a part of my family, a part of my story, who was completely unknown to me. The thought of her, living her life, perhaps wondering about her origins, while I now held the key to her past, was unbearable. After much discussion, and with my persistent urging, we decided to explore the possibility of finding her. It was a terrifying prospect for my parents, a reopening of old wounds, a confrontation with a past they had meticulously buried. But for me it felt like an imperative, a necessary step towards healing, towards integrating this profound secret into the tapestry of our family. The journey to find Sarah was long and arduous. We started with the adoption agency, which after much legal navigation and the undeniable proof of the letters and my parents' testimonies, agreed to facilitate contact, provided Sarah had also expressed interest in connecting with her birth family. It was a waiting game, filled with anxiety and hope. Every phone call, every email, sent my heart racing. Weeks turned into months. There were moments of doubt, of despair, where I wondered if we were doing the right thing, if we were opening a Pandora's box that should have remained sealed. My parents, though supportive, carried the weight of their past decisions heavily. I saw the toll it took on them, the resurfacing of old grief, but also a glimmer of something else, a quiet hope, a yearning for closure, a desire to finally acknowledge the child they had lost. Then one afternoon the call came. Sarah was alive. Sarah was well. And Sarah, it turned out, had indeed registered with the agency years ago, curious about her birth family, wondering about the people who had given her life. My heart soared. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, mingled with an almost overwhelming sense of apprehension. What would she be like? Would she resent us? Would she want to know us? The first meeting was orchestrated by the agency, a neutral ground, a place where we could connect safely. My parents were a wreck, nervous, tearful. I was a bundle of nerves myself, my palms sweating, my mind racing through a million possible scenarios. And then she walked in. She had my mother's eyes, just as my father had written, and a smile that was undeniably familiar, a subtle curve of the lips that mirrored my own. She was beautiful, poised, and radiating a quiet strength. She looked nothing like me, and everything like me, all at once. The initial moments were awkward, filled with polite introductions and tentative smiles. My parents, overwhelmed, could barely speak, tears streaming down their faces. I felt a surge of protectiveness, of sisterly love, for this woman I had just met, yet had known in a profound, unspoken way for so long. Sarah was gracious, understanding, and incredibly strong. She shared her story, a loving upbringing with adoptive parents who had always been open about her adoption. She had wondered about her birth family, of course, but had also built a beautiful life for herself. She didn't hold resentment. Instead, she expressed a calm curiosity, a desire to understand her origins. We talked for hours that day, sharing pieces of our lives, filling in the blanks. My parents, finally able to speak their truth to her, poured out their hearts, expressing their deepest regrets and their enduring love. Sarah listened, absorbing it all, her expressions a mixture of sadness and compassion. It was a healing experience, a release of decades of pent-up emotion. The journey of getting to know Sarah is still ongoing. We're building a relationship, slowly, carefully, respecting the boundaries of her existing family and our own. It's not a fairy tale ending where everything is instantly perfect. It's complex, messy, and deeply emotional. There are moments of joy, of shared laughter, of uncanny similarities, and also moments of lingering sadness, of reflecting on lost time, on the life we could have had together. My relationship with my parents has also fundamentally changed. The initial anger has subsided, replaced by a deeper, more nuanced understanding. I see them now not just as my infallible protectors, but as human beings who made difficult choices, who loved deeply, and who carried their burdens in silence. The secret, once a dividing force, has ironically brought us closer, forging a new kind of honesty and vulnerability between us. We talk about everything now, the good and the bad, the comfortable and the uncomfortable. The air in our house is lighter, clearer, free from the oppressive weight of the unspoken. Finding those letters in the dusty attic wasn't just about uncovering a secret. It was about uncovering a lost part of our family, a missing piece of my own identity. It was about confronting the complexities of love, loss, and the intricate web of choices that shape our lives. It taught me that families are rarely perfect, that secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, can cast long shadows, but that truth, no matter how painful, ultimately has the power to heal and to connect us in ways we never imagined possible. If you've ever felt like there's a piece missing from your family puzzle, or if you've stumbled upon a secret that shook your world, know that you're not alone. The journey to understanding and healing can be long, but it's a journey worth taking. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel for more true stories about shocking family secrets. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever uncovered a hidden family secret? How did it change your life? Share your experiences, and let's talk about the incredible, often complicated tapestry of family.